James Harden and Russell Westbrook combined for just 28 points on 8 for 36 shooting. All right, Stephen A., I'm going to start with you since you said it was nice and not sunshiny there in LA. How disappointing were PG-13 Harden and Russ last night?
It was a catastrophe. There's no way around this. And listen, I want to say this off the top. And you can put Andre and Legs up on the screen because I want to say this. I want to see their face when I say this. I want wholesale changes in Los Angeles. Steve Ballmer just needs to blow it up. Enough's enough, okay? Enough's enough. Now, we don't expect now if there's something a change takes place, and somehow, some way, a Ty Lue squad, because he's fully capable of pulling this off because he's an exceptional coach, turns things around, they come out and win Game 6 and they come back to win Game 7, that may be a different story, but I don't expect that to happen. We see James Harden. We've been raving about it. We saw him perform in a couple of games this series. We saw what he did in a couple of games without Kawhi Leonard, averaging over 30, and then what happens last night? 7 points? Really? This is what we're talking about here. What the hell was that about? Russell Westbrook, I mean, Lord, since he got himself ejected in Game 3, he's been a no-show. We got to look at that particular situation. And then you ultimately watch Paul George struggle the way that he struggled last night. This is what I'm trying to say about the Los Angeles Clippers. At some point in time, you can't be about trying to compete with the Los Angeles Lakers. Laker Nation is Laker Nation. They got their fan base and what have you. But the bottom line is you're not going to be them. You got to establish your own. And in order to establish your own, you got to have dependable bodies to rely upon. Kawhi Leonard is your star. I want to state this for the record again. Nobody's questioning the sincerity or the legitimacy of his injury. We know he's injured, but he is the absolute worst superstar you could possibly have, ever.
Okay. It's a bold statement. And he says no one's questioning his injury. Stephen A. Smith has questioned his injuries a lot over the years and has said he needs to play, he needs to do this, he needs to do that. And it's like you don't know his body at all. But okay, let's talk about the Clippers. No one should be surprised here. No one. Because what makes the Clippers is Paul George, Harden, Westbrook, and Kawhi Leonard. Okay? So 4 stars, some superstars, who are either injured, obviously Kawhi, older, definitely now Harden, Westbrook, and even, they're all a little bit older than you would want them to be, but definitely more Harden than anything in terms of showing his age, and all 4 of them are inconsistent players. Less Kawhi because he's always banged up, so it's always hard to know, when he has an off night, like what's going on. But Paul George, Harden, and Westbrook are they are arguably the 3 most inconsistent star/superstars. I don't know if you would necessarily claim them to be superstars right now in this present time, but they at least at one point, of course, were. They're all Hall of Famers. They've all led their own teams respectively. Harden an MVP, Westbrook an MVP. And so I would say that none of this is surprising. Like, what do you expect? Like, first off, it's silly. It's dumb to even show Westbrook's, because you can see in the bottom corner, it shows Westbrook 2 for 11 and 6 points. It's like, were you expecting a 30-point game from Westbrook? Because if he's putting up 30 points, that means things are really like going crazy. Either it's a complete runaway by the Clippers, or the Clippers are getting rocked and everything's a disaster, and like, well, at least Westbrook's scoring, because otherwise, like, that's not what you need from Westbrook. Paul George is a great player, but also has these nights plenty of times, these 15-point games. That is where you definitely do see the greatness of like a LeBron James even, And I'm not a super LeBron James fanboy. I criticize LeBron James all the time. But that is something where you see some of these other stars where you just know they are getting their points. LeBron James is going to go get buckets, especially in the playoffs in these games. I know you can point out a couple games here and there of him not doing that, but that is not the norm. That is not part of his story of his greatness. It is part of Harden's story. It is part of Westbrook's. It is part of Paul George. Like, everything the Clippers are built around, those 4 guys, they are doing exactly what they have always done. Always done. So none of this should be a surprise. None. quite frankly, if I was the Clippers, now at this point years ago, I would have just built the whole team around Paul George. I would have said, Paul George, my superstar. I understand why they took the risk on Kawhi. And the problem is it's like he's injured, he's not. He's injured, he's not. If he's healthy, this series would be completely different, and the Clippers as a whole would be completely different. We know that. No one's disputing how good of a basketball player Kawhi Leonard is. But for the most part, Paul George is the most dependable player. So what you should have done is saying, okay, we know we got PG-13. He's really, he's a great player, great leader, a good person. Players want to be with him. Let's build around that. Because no one necessarily is dying to sign up to play with Harden or Westbrook, and no one's dying to sign up and move their family across the country to go team up with Kawhi at this point because they don't know, is he playing, is he not playing, what's going on. Players want to get paid and players want to win. So, if you had to choose between, if you're a pretty great player, I'm not saying like a superstar, even if you are a superstar, let's say you're a Damian Lillard. Let's say Damian Lillard was actually a free agent, or the Blazers were like, Trailblazers, we will let you pick whatever team you want and we will get you there. Where do you want to go? I don't know if he's going to say LA Clippers, because he's going to look at that and say, I don't know, man, is Kawhi going to be healthy? Westbrook, I'm not dying to play with that. Harden, he notoriously doesn't show up in the playoffs. You're not dying to do that. But if you then said, hey, what about the Minnesota Timberwolves? OKC Thunder? The Boston Celtics? He'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. So that's the problem. Like, let's say they could get a Giannis. Let's say Giannis was a free agent, was leaving the Bucks. He doesn't want to sign up for that. He's not going to sign up for that at all. So I think you have to create a team that is not only good, but then also attracts other people, attracts players. And listen, as someone who's a Sixers fan, it's a very similar experience in terms of having a team that's pretty good, but not complete, and having players that are injured, inconsistent, and now, other players are not going to want to die to go to Philly to play there. And the fans get dejected very easily. As if you've been watching the playoffs, if you've been watching other games and stuff, and if you've been watching the Sixers games, the home court, when the Sixers are home, it's like 50% Knicks fans, which is insane because Philly fans have some of the most diehard fans in all of sports, and it's like not up for debate. And yet Sixers fans are dejected. They constantly have players that don't show up, like Tobias Harris. They have Joel Embiid constantly getting injured. They constantly come up short. That's where the Clippers are at. So, if I was the Clippers, there's the potential that I would just say, all right, I'm getting rid of everyone and trying my best to keep Paul George. Or you're just going to not, do like a pseudo, I don't want to say tank, but you just get rid of everyone and you start new. You start the draft, like you kind of do what the Trailblazers are doing in a sense, and a couple other teams. And it's a longer time, because the whole problem is, and this has been the thing is with Bomber, is that they're opening up a new arena and that they need stars to fill the seats. And so they need James Harden and Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and Westbrook. They need that. Because if they unload everyone and have no stars and they open up a new arena, no one's going to go. And that's bad, and obviously Bomber doesn't want that. First off, he wants the income. He needs the income. He doesn't need it because he's a mega billionaire, but he wants that revenue. No matter how rich you are, especially someone like Bomber, they want the money to keep coming in. And it's just a bad look. The guy has his own, his own ego to look out to and his own reputation. So the Clippers are in a tough spot, which is a shame because I think it's cool when the Clippers are competitive and can fight for, in LA and you can have two thriving teams in Los Angeles. I think that's, a good situation to be in. But the Clippers, and I had the Clippers picking, beating the Mavs if Kawhi Leonard was healthy. And, they've won a couple games without Kawhi being healthy. And so clearly they're a good team at times. They need the 30 point, 25, whatever points from Harden. They need him to make those running, those little runners that he does. But when he goes 2 for 12, you're like, well, what the heck? And it becomes very hard to game plan. It's very difficult when you have players that are inconsistent because you don't know what you're getting. You don't know who you can rely on any given moment. And I see Westbrook taking 11 shots, and I think, why? I would never get Westbrook with the idea that he's going to be shooting 10 shots a game. It should be, you are not a shooter. You are still athletic enough. You are still fast. You're physical. You're a pretty good defender. You have good hands. You can handle the ball. You can make good passes. You can get some rebounds, fight for loose balls. That is your role. That is what we want from you. Unless you have open layups and dunks, I don't care if they leave you wide open at 3. You're not taking the shot. I do not care. You're not taking the shot. It worked for Draymond Green for years, and they won 4 championships with that. So I just think it's dumb. You have Westbrook pulling up for jumpers, and it's just like, that's not your game. It's not your game. And that is what the Denver Nuggets do unbelievably well. All of their players do exactly what they need to do. They asked Aaron Gordon to play amazing defense, get some rebounds, and score some points when needed, when things are wide open, when you can get the dunks, when the alley-oops are there for you. Otherwise, he's not pulling up for like 20 shots a game here. He knows his role. He knows it's Jokic, it's Jamal Murray, and then the next shooter is going to be Michael Porter Jr. He knows that. He doesn't say, I'm going to try to do more. I want my points. I want to do this. I want to do that. He's taking the same amount of shots. He's taking relatively the same amount of shots as George and Harden. That can't be. That cannot be. George needs to be shooting 20 plus shots a game. He's the only one that can consistently make shots. So I think it's poor game planning. You have inconsistent players, injury-prone players, and that's just the way it goes, man. It's such a cliche, but it's just a truer statement about the NBA. It is a make or miss league. And that's why over the years, for the most part, minus the Golden State Warriors, honestly, and that's because you had Steph Curry, who was just the greatest shooter in the entire world, the players that can rely on their physicality can have more consistent success in the playoffs. The LeBron James, the Shaqs, in more recent times, the Jokic's, because you can take higher percentage shots. You can get to the rim. You can get your dunks. You can get your layups. When you're relying on jump shooting, it's just, are the shots going in or not? There's no extra reason why Harden was missing his shots tonight and was making everything the other night. At this point, it's almost out of his hands. He shoots it. He has a wide open shot, a wide open 3, and he shoots it, and it goes halfway down and rims out, and the other night, it's a swish. It's like, why is one day you make it and one day you're not? No one knows. No one knows. It's just the way it goes. You just can't shoot 100%. So when you rely on jump shooting, Paul George made one of the most insane 3-pointers the other night that I'd ever seen. It was like a fadeaway, one dribble to the side, shooting behind the backboard, practically behind the backboard. And that was insane. And in this game, he's missing 5-footers. There's just no explanation for it. So when you can rely on the more physical guys, then you can have more reliable, consistent success. The guys who can get to the rim, who can get that bucket, who you're not relying on, is the shots falling tonight or they're not? Because it is a make or miss league. It is the oldest cliche, but it is really arguably the most accurate statement you can make about anything basketball related. You're either making the shots or you're not. And if you're making them, you're going to win. If they're rimming out, best of luck to you. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you think about the Clippers? Was this disappointing or was this to be expected? And are just the Mavs a better team? Let me know in the comments below. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I read every single comment. So let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.